Open your kitchen cabinet. Right there, in a glass jar or a paper bag, sits the substance that has spilled more blood than anything else in human history. You bought it for pocket change. You toss it into your coffee without thinking. You probably ate 8 spoonfuls of it today without even noticing. And you have no idea what it truly cost. Because sugar shaped the modern world more than any king, any war, any religion you ever studied in school. It redrew borders, filled ships with bodies, and invented addiction before the word addiction even existed. And the most disturbing part is that it is still doing it right now, to you. It all begins about 10,000 years ago in New Guinea, a humid valley surrounded by mountains on the other side of the planet. Growing there was a tall, thick grass, over 10 feet high. One day, someone ripped off a piece of the stalk, bit into it, and tasted something that probably shocked them with how good it was. A sweet liquid pouring into the mouth at a time when sweetness was almost non-existent. It was just a plant chewed by villagers, offered at weddings, planted near their huts. There was no mill, no chain, no blood. It was just sweetness, just simple joy in the mouths of ordinary people. Hold on to that image because it is the before. And every innocent before in this kind of story exists only to make the after unbearable. Sugarcane traveled slowly, hand to hand, island to island, across Southeast Asia until it reached India. And it was there, more than 2,000 years ago, that someone did something that would change the fate of humanity without having the slightest idea. They discovered that if you crushed the cane, boiled the juice in a pot until it thickened, and let it cool, what remained was a powder. Crystals. Sugar you could store in a jar, transport for months, hide, sell. The sweetness that used to rot inside the stalk in a few days was now eternal. Now, it was a commodity. Travelers who passed through India were stunned. Soldiers in Alexander the Great's army wrote about a reed that produces honey without bees. To them, it was not food. It was a miracle. It was crystallized white magic. And it was exactly as a miracle that sugar entered Europe. First through the Arabs, then knocking on the doors of a gray, cold continent where most people would live their entire lives without ever tasting anything truly sweet. Nobody treated sugar as food. They treated it as medicine, as a jewel, as edible gold. Doctors prescribed sugar to cure coughs and sadness. Apothecaries kept it in tiny portions, locked away beside the most expensive spices. A single spoonful could cost a peasant weeks of labor, and the kings took it to a level that would seem insane today. At royal banquets, they built entire sculptures out of sugar, castles, animals, ships, all molded in pure sugar and displayed for their guests. Not to eat, to scream a single message. I am so rich that I can waste the most expensive substance in the world just to impress you. Queen Elizabeth I of England was so addicted to sugar that her teeth turned completely black. And you know what happened next? The nobles at court started darkening their own teeth on purpose with powder, pretending they ate as much sugar as the queen. Rotting teeth became a status symbol. Stop and feel how insane that is. People wanted to look sick because it meant they were rich. It was gold. It was luxury. It was pure desire. And desire in human history always demands a price. Always. Because there was a massive, fatal problem hidden inside that shiny white crystal. Sugarcane is one of the cruelest crops to grow. It only thrives in hot, humid climates. It has to be harvested by hand under a sun that hits 104 degrees, cut with heavy machetes, stalk by stalk. And the worst part, cut sugarcane rots within hours. The juice has to be boiled immediately, day and night, in scalding cauldrons inside closed sheds where the heat exceeds what the human body can endure. To produce sugar at scale, you needed an absurd number of people working themselves to death in conditions no one would accept voluntarily. Europe looked at that problem and found a solution, the darkest solution history has ever recorded. When the Europeans arrived in the Americas and the islands of the Atlantic, they realized they had found sugarcane paradise. Endless land, year-round sun, plenty of rain. Only one thing was missing: arms. They tried enslaving the indigenous peoples who died by the millions from disease and exhaustion. They tried poor workers from Europe who could not handle the climate. And then, with a coldness that still chills the blood, they looked toward the African continent and made a decision that would last over 300 years. They built ships designed to transport human beings like sacks of cargo. Men, women, and children torn from their villages, shackled, stacked in holds with less than 3 feet of headroom, lying on their own waste and blood for weeks crossing the Atlantic. They called it the Middle Passage. Imagine the heat in that hold. Imagine the smell. Imagine the sound, not silence, but the moans, the weeping, the prayers in languages the overseers did not understand and did not care to understand. It is estimated that over 12 million Africans were forced onto those ships, and nearly 2 million died before ever seeing land on the other side. 2 million bodies thrown into the sea like garbage. It is like emptying an entire city, body by body, into the bottom of the ocean. And where did the vast majority of those people end up? Not picking cotton, as most people assume. The overwhelming majority went straight to the cane fields, to sugar. The sweetness in your cup was the single greatest engine of the slave trade in human history. And what awaited them on the other side was a hell with a technical name: the sugar mill. They worked 18 hours a day. And the deadliest point of all was the press, the metal rollers that crushed the cane to extract the juice. It was so common for an exhausted worker to have a hand pulled into those rollers that the plantation owners kept a machete hanging right next to the machine. Not out of compassion, out of economics. It was cheaper to cut off someone's arm to save the rest of the body than to lose the investment. A machete hanging there, waiting. The life expectancy of an enslaved person in the worst mills was about 7 to 10 years after arrival. 7 years. The owners calculated with pen and paper that it was cheaper to work a person to death and buy another than to let them live. They turned human beings into a spreadsheet, into a line of production cost. And that cost was paid in lives so that Europe could sweeten its tea, its coffee, and its luxury cakes. But sugar did not stay contained in the plantations. It spilled out. It infected politics, economics, and the maps of the entire world. Those tiny Caribbean islands, specks in the ocean you can barely find in an atlas, became the most valuable land on the planet. A single sugar island generated more wealth than entire continental colonies. And that led to decisions that seem like madness today. When France negotiated with England at the end of the 7 Years' War, the French made a choice that sounds like a joke. They chose to keep the small sugar island of Guadeloupe and hand over to the English a vast, frozen, apparently worthless territory in North America. That worthless territory was called Canada. Yes. Sugar was so valuable that a European empire traded all of Canada for one island of cane. The borders of the world you see on the map today were drawn in part by a hunger for sweetness. And the sweetened tea that became a symbol of England only existed because there was cheap sugar from the colonies. When the taxes on those products weighed on the colonists in North America, the revolt that erupted helped spark the independence of the United States. The plantation system, the model of large-scale farming driven by enslaved labor, was perfected first in the sugar mills. Sugar was the laboratory of modern slavery. Now you might think this is all in the past. Horrible, yes, but over. And this is where I need you to pay attention, because I made you a promise at the beginning. I said sugar still controls you. And I was not being dramatic. I was being literal. When slavery ended and technology made production cheap, sugar stopped being a king's luxury and became something far more dangerous. It became everywhere, cheap and invisible. And the industry discovered something about your brain that the kings never knew. Sugar activates inside you the exact same reward circuits that hard drugs activate. The same dopamine, the same chemistry of wanting more. It does not get you high, but it trains you, sip after sip, bite after bite, to seek another dose. Newborn babies already smile when they taste something sweet and cry when they taste something bitter, before any culture, before any learned habit. It is written in our code, and the industry read that code better than anyone. Now comes the part that should make you suspicious of every label you touch. In the 1960s, when scientists began pointing to sugar as a suspect in causing heart disease, the industry did not change the product. It paid. Documents revealed decades later showed that the industry funded scientists at prestigious universities to shift the blame away from sugar and dump it entirely on fat. For decades, the entire world believed that fat was the villain. They cut fat from processed foods. And you know what they put in its place so the food would still taste good? Sugar. More sugar in everything. And when I say everything, Take it literally. Sugar is in your sliced bread, in your tomato sauce, in your healthy yogurt, in your fitness granola bar, in the juice box you give your kid thinking it is fruit. The industry hides sugar behind dozens of names on the label. High fructose corn syrup, dextrose, maltose, sucrose, nectar of this, concentrate of that. They are all sugar under different names scattered across the ingredients list, so you never notice how much you are consuming. 200 years ago, the average person consumed about 4 pounds of sugar per year. Today, many people consume over 80, 90, even 100 pounds a year without realizing it. 100 pounds. The weight of an entire adult person in sugar entering your body every year, most of it hidden. And the result is in the hospitals. The explosion of type 2 diabetes, obesity, liver disease in younger and younger people. The same sweetness that killed in the mills never stopped killing. It just changed its method. It used to kill the people who produced it. Now, it slowly kills the people who consume it. Look at the cruel and perfect inversion. In the beginning, sugar was a luxury of the rich, and the poor died to produce it. Today, the foods most loaded with cheap sugar are the most affordable, while fresh food has become a privilege. Sugar switched sides, but it never stopped collecting its price in human bodies. And you, sitting right there, are the most recent link in a chain 10,000 years long. Every time you feel that sudden craving for something sweet in the middle of the afternoon, that pull that seems to come from nowhere, know that it is not your weakness. It is design. It is a system that took centuries to perfect. So before I let you go, stop for one last moment and look again at that little white jar in your kitchen. It was there on the humid island of New Guinea, chewed by hands that had never known iron. It was there in the boiling cauldrons of ancient India when Greek soldiers called it honey without bees. It was there on the tables of kings, sculpted into sugar castles, blackening the teeth of queens. It was there in the holds of slave ships, in the smell, the weeping, and the darkness of the Middle Passage. It was there in the machete hanging beside the press, waiting for the tired arm of someone who did not even have a name in the mill's records. It was there when France traded Canada for an island of cane. It was there when North America erupted in revolution. It was there when scientists were paid to lie about what it does to your heart. And it is here now. In your kitchen, in your cabinet, on the label you did not read, in the craving that will hit you tonight. That sweet, innocent little powder that looks like the most harmless thing in the world carries inside every crystal 10,000 years of desire, of power, of empires, and of blood. You are not just eating sugar. You are tasting the sweetest and most bitter story humanity has ever written. And it is not over yet, because the next chapter will be written tomorrow morning, the moment you decide whether or not to sweeten your coffee.